Had a couple come in this weekend?
Yeah, we had a full intake. We had like 6 yesterday morning. We bounced up to 76 from the weekend.
You had 6 yesterday morning?
Yeah, yeah. 3 in this morning. And just kind of what happens when the weather gets nice. People get out and about and they're doing different things, but usually that'll level back out too.
I heard about one of them that you picked up. You gotta keep him there for a couple extra days, but I'll talk to you about that later.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Kevin. Rodney Blazer, maintenance.
Good morning, we got a lot going on, but update on front steps, they're hoping to maybe start pouring on Thursday. So they're gonna do it in a couple different, multiple sections, I guess, so not sure exactly when it'll be done, but getting into the last phases of that part of it, so. That and it's weather depending too, so hopefully we keep some dry, warmer weather and get that buttoned up.
Okay, thanks, Rod.
Thank you.
Jared Laster, Southeast Iowa Region Plan.
Morning. Well, we have a number of things on the agenda here today, so I'll keep my comments brief. We had a zoning commission meeting last Tuesday, which it's a matter for discussion in the work session for the rezoning request. We'll have a meeting of our other board, the Board of Adjustment, next Monday evening for a special use permit request. And then we have a minor subdivision out for review, just dropped it off in your box. That should be probably 2 weeks from today, so obviously we're definitely keeping busy right now. That's it.
Thanks, Jared. Ken Heidman, SEAL Region for Mental Health.
Good morning. We're having our SEAL meeting tomorrow. All of our, our governing board meeting at 1:30 tomorrow. And we'll have, I think, 6 contracts that will get signed by the governing board tomorrow. And then we'll only have 2 contracts left to do. I know on today's agenda, I see on G, there's the DCAT amendment to the original contract. And I did get a call or an email from Tammy saying, when that contract gets signed, there'll be 2 copies of it. She asked me to take it back to my office, and then DHS is gonna come in the morning and pick those up. So that's what, that's for that item G. And I'll be staying after for the work session on general assistance today too. So that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Terry Johnson, County Auditor.
Good morning. Just a 2022 primary election update. Absentee voting begins May the 18th here in the office. In person is from May the 18th through June the 6th till 5 o'clock. The mail to ballots, anybody that requested a ballot to be mailed, if they sent their request form in and we received it, those ballots will also be mailed out that same day. So if somebody mailed us a request form a month ago and wonders where their ballot is, it's not gonna be mailed until the 18th, so don't come rushing down here to vote your missing ballot yet. And then also we have to be open that Saturday before the primary election. So we'll be open from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, June the 4th for absentee voting. And just reminding everybody that when you come down here to vote or whenever you go to the polls to vote, take your photo ID with you.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Appreciate that. Brian Carter, Secondary Roads.
Good morning. Project's moving along. It's nice to see, well, I guess we kind of spiked in the summertime temperatures, but it's nice to see the weather, at least the rain back off for a little bit. So, plenty of blading we need to catch up on. I think one of the most common calls these days are potholes on paved roads. And truth be told, we just, between the rain and every time you turn around and it rains, you gotta put your blade guys back out and blade, and we just haven't had the bodies to do much patching. So, if you get a call, tell them to call our office, we'll note it, but we just haven't got caught up on that particular aspect, which is frustrating for some folks. I know Tom received a call, but unfortunately when you run out of bodies, certain things just don't get accomplished, and that's the way it goes right at the moment. So it is on our radar, but there's plenty of potholes both on the gravels at the moment and on the paved roads. So, project-wise, Pleasant Grove is still moving along. I still probably say it'd be 2 to 3 weeks before I could envision that being open back up, but they did switch over and they're working on the second half, or call it the upper half, whatever you wanna call it. So if you're going to the quarry now, for the first stretch of that project, everybody came in from the east of the quarry. Now that they're using the lower entrances, across the bridge area. So if you're going to the quarry, you'll come in from the west side. The east side will be closed, and they're removing that concrete as we speak. So I would say maybe a chance of seeing some, first the concrete poured maybe sometime early next week, if things keep moving. Upper Flint, I think the stretch of wet weather here the last week and a half has caused the subcontractor to push back a little bit, so there's a chance there could be some work on Upper Flint late this week. It's probably more likely the beginning of the following. So that's kind of where that's at. Geode, I think they've got 1 or 2 concrete pours left. They're kind of small pours. So that one's as close as anything to buttoning up, but they still have some backfill to do. Still got that concrete to pour, so there's still some work there, but it is closer than the others. I hope within a couple weeks we're open on that. And then next week we bid Dry Branch Bridge, T17, and that goes through the DOT, that's not here. So we'll know a lot more about that project and probably, or perhaps more interestingly, the costs of that project. So, but that does bid on the state level. And yeah, other than that, there's plenty of stuff going on, but that's what's going on in our department.
The rock hall, are you gonna start it back up Wednesday?
Glad you mentioned that. Actually, the rock hall started back up this morning.
This morning?
On the southern stuff, so out of Great River down there, out of the Dowds Quarry. That's gonna go today and tomorrow. They're hoping to button that up tomorrow, and then L&W, that rock hall out of the north end, out of L&W, is gonna fire back up Thursday is the current plan. So, and it'll run for a stretch of time out of there.
Yeah.
So there will be that activity getting fired up also.
Okay.
And then it won't be too long after that, and the dust control will come along. It's kind of all bunched up this year. So, a lot of activity. I just encourage people with that, when you combine everything we're doing, there was a, pretty bad accident on 61 yesterday. Fortunately, everybody walked away, but I think Kevin, I'm sure, would say the same thing, but take your phones and put them down and pay attention to what's in front of you. Because I would bet money that the percentage of accidents caused by people not watching the road are far higher than they're ever reported. So, the big factor now is that it's awfully late, or it's kind of late season, but you got a lot of ag running around now. That would preferably be done by now. And combine that with road construction and turning trucks when the Highway 61 project's going, you have all sorts of trucks turning. It's busy, you need to be paying attention in front of you. So, I would mention also Mediapolis Road should be opening this week. I was told tomorrow. Can't swear by that, it's not my project, but I was up there yesterday and they are basically the patches are in and they're rebuilding the shoulders where they put those culverts in. So hopefully that holds true and that'll open tomorrow. That would be a really good thing up in that area. So I guess I want to mention that also.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Yep.
Janelle, how's the treasurer's office?
Good morning, we're busy. Like I said, the delinquent notices went out last week, so we've been bombarded with phone calls and some of those funds are trickling in. But I would mention that this Friday is the last day to pay to avoid publication. So other than that, they can still continue to pay, but if you don't want to be in the paper, Friday's the deadline.
Okay. Thanks, Janelle. Brooke, how's everything out vets?
Good, keeping busy. I had spring school a couple weeks ago. That was a week of training. Now I'm working on cross accreditation with Vietnam Vets of America, which should be my last cross accreditation that I'm working on. That's 30 additional hours of training, so keeping busy with that. Of course, phone calls are nonstop, but just keeping busy, and that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Chris Capoio, Public Health.
Good morning. We're also keeping busy. I really don't have anything new to report. We do have an agenda item.
Okay, thank you. And our Natalie was in this morning, and she said that the recorder's office was going fine. She she had a meeting that started a Zoom meeting out in Moines, so she's on that meeting now, so she won't be here today. Moving on to correspondence. Any of you gentlemen have any correspondence? Tom, do you have any correspondence?
I do not.
I do not either, and there isn't any here, so we shall move on to discussion and vote. We have the Iowa DNR 28E agreement, and this is the agreement that we had the work session on with Krista last week. So, and this pertains to groundwater and wells and everything. So what's your deal with which on this?
Yeah, let's get it on.
I'll second that. My only concern with that whole 2080 agreement is that it did not create additional liability for the county. And that we learned in last week's work session that it did not create that liability. So I would second that motion.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Can we stamp, Carrie, can we stamp these with the state and then side sign them?
Maybe back by your signature
Back with-
page, 'cause do all three of you sign on the signature,
Well, it doesn't have,
or is it just you?
it's just the chairperson only, and then you.
Okay, I'd put your approval stamp back there, and
Back
not on the
there.
front, and not on the front of it.
That way these guys can't say, well, we didn't know anything about that, and Carrie signed that, so. We hold this up to the screen, can you sign this, Tom?
Not any more illegibly than I usually sign.
Good point. Okay, we have a resolution for the final plat of the Etkin subdivision. Jared, that would be you, you wanna,
Minor subdivision, but it's probably one of the larger ones we've handled, this is just the total acreage. So basically, this is about 160 acre farm property that was surveyed in its entirety. The vast majority, about 144 acres, lot 2, is all planned to be sold. It's all farmland right now, and that will be sold to a different person who will continue to farm it. But the family that currently owns it intends to keep 2 separate pieces, hence lots 1 and 3. Lot 1 along 45th Avenue is going to be kept in the family trust. That's about 13 acres. And then lot 3, which is along the levee on the east side, has a little wooded area that will be kept by a family member for private recreational purposes. That's about 8 acres. So the big issue we initially encountered with this one is access, given the presence of a couple of drainage ditches in this area. As of now, everything east of that drainage ditch on the west side of the property is accessed through the neighboring property to the south over to 160th Street. So we learned that there was evidently no official recorded easement as of yet for that property. It had just been an informal agreement to use that ever since. So they have since last month recorded a 33-foot wide easement for access to this property from the county road system. So that is official going forward, and then that on the plat, that 33-foot strip is extended all the way through lot 2 so that it provides access to lot 3 as well. We also noticed that even despite not technically being landlocked, because of the presence of that ditch, there's currently only one entrance to this property along 45th Avenue, and it goes directly onto Auditor Parcel C, which is adjacent to lot 1, and there's a house on that one right now. And that's actually the same person that's going to be buying lot 3. And so initially it sounded like their intention was to just continue using that access for both lot 1 and the portion of lot 2 west of that ditch, but we were able to persuade them that going forward, being able to have a direct access from 45th Avenue as a contingency if there are ever to be issues in the future with going through that other property, that they agreed to have it be so that they would establish an entrance right at the point where lot 1 and 2, the boundary along 45th, and that could be a shared entrance. And subsequently, the secondary roads did confirm that they would allow an entrance, one additional entrance at that location that could be shared by both of those lots. And so we have added a condition onto the plat noting that those lots 1 and 2 shall share an access from 45th, that's where they intersect. And then also we did get a comment from the NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation, noting that there is an agreement in place for prior tree planting and maintenance through the REAP program with DNR, and that applies to lot 3, what is essentially has been surveyed as lot 3, and that's an agreement that lasts through 2037. So as we understand it, that recreational use of the property would not conflict with that agreement so long as that tree planting is maintained. So just for the record, we've included a condition noting that the owner of lot 3 shall maintain the property in accordance with that agreement with the specific number listed there. So with that, we recommend approval of Etkin subdivision with those 2 conditions.
Sounds good, move to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yeah.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Jared will sign these after
Yep.
the meeting for you.
Yep.
Okay, moving on, we have resolutions for the 2022-36 final plat for the Lang ASKG subdivision.
Thankfully, this one is quite a bit simpler than the other one. So it's a 1-lot subdivision on Fife Road, northwest of Burlington. And basically what happened here is you got a 40-acre lot that they're interested in selling in parts. And earlier this year, they had surveyed off a few acres with the existing house, a couple of ag buildings, and a pond. Since there was somebody they had in mind that was interested in buying that. But subsequently, after it was recorded, reaching back out to that person, they're apparently actually interested in purchasing all of the acreage to the west and north of the ravine as well, which is where they have a pasture and cattle operation there. And so unfortunately, because it's larger than what they had previously surveyed off, that triggered the need for a subdivision. So in this case, it's pretty simple. They're just splitting off about 13 acres. It's intended to be sold along with the parcel with the house to the east, but technically because it has its own driveway access from Fife Road, separate from the house driveway, it could technically that would be fine if it were to be sold in the future, because it separately from the house, because it would have its own access going forward. So apart from secondary roads, noting that they need to use that existing access, which is the plan anyway, we did not receive any significant comments about this one, so we recommend approval as submitted.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah. Yes. We will sign these afterwards also, Jared.
Thank you.
Now we have the approval for the proposal for professional engineering service for the Moines County Bridge FR-11 FHWA 143211. That would be you, Mr. Carter.
Yep, this is, we have 3 different contracts, they're all on different agenda items. We've talked about all of these multiple times. This bridge, particular one, is on Upper Flint Road. Because of the style of bridge, it'll have to be a deck overlay, and then if there's needed, some full depth patching. But the total, which will not be the final total because things always come up in all of this, but for the preliminary part of this, it's, if you add it all up, it's about $15,300. We'll pay for this out of farm to market is the intention. And this is working towards the deck on that bridge being upgraded. Like I said, this would be an overlay, or it'd be a mill and fill essentially, but obviously it's concrete on a bridge. So, I would recommend approval.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yep.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Same thing, Brian?
Yeah, it's, I don't think that's gonna matter. If it's not federal, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Okay, moving on, we have the approval for the proposal for professional engineering service at the Moines on the, county bridge FR 14 FHWA 143-200.
Similar conversation, slightly different project. This is a little different style of bridge. It's still gonna be a job replacing the deck. My guess is it'll be a full deck replacement, if I had to guess. But that is part of the process we'll go through with the consultant to decide exactly what the scope of the project will be. If you tally it all up, it's $20,400. A little bit more complicated of a project, that's why the difference is higher, but either way, this is on North Gear. Yet again, we've talked about this for a long while too. This will kind of finish up that segment from Flint Bottom into West Burlington. This is kind of that last part of it. So I would recommend approval on this also.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. This is one that you took us out there when they did the chain drag on it.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
was kind of random, I guess we'll call it good luck timing, but this is the one that when we went through, they were actually doing the drag on. We
Yeah.
did that on 8 different bridges, and 4 of them are in our program for, one's in replacement, the other 3 are these projects for the deck replacements, and the other 4 are in there as basically patching projects. So they all, we suspected that they needed the work, and they all need the work.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
You're not done with me yet.
I know that. We have approval for the proposal for professional engineering service for the Moines County Bridge, PG 27, FHWA 143-945.
Same thing as the last one I just talked about. If you total it up, it's $20,400. It's a very similar project to the last one on here. This is on Pleasant Grove Road. It's the only bridge no, I'm sorry, I said Pleasant Grove Road. It's on Danville Road in Pleasant Grove Township, sorry about that. Bridge over Flint Creek, same thing, deck just needs work, everything else is in pretty good shape. So, I would recommend approval on this also.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, this is the sealed decant, fiscal year 23 amendment to original contract. Ken, you want to explain any of this to us?
I just got the email is all, I don't serve on the DCAT board, and, so I did hear that DHS is gonna stop by and pick them up tomorrow morning
Okay.
from my office.
The amendment of the contract is effective July 1st, 2022 between the Iowa Department of Human Service and Des Moines County Contractor. Amendment to the contract as follows. Revision 1, contract duration, contract is hereby extended from July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023. Revision 2 to section 1.3.4.1 pricing, the maximum amount of contractors will be compensated is hereby amended to $110,000 for the entire term of the contract. Revision 3, section 1.3.4.1 payment table, contract payments are amended as follows. And then it goes down for your units. Now, if anybody wants to read this, it will be in the auditor's office. So, contract duration, amount not to exceed on 7/1/22 to 6/30/23, $25,000. And from 7/1/23 to 6/3/24, not to exceed $50,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. And you're gonna take one of these with you, right, Ken?
I'll take
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Send it over there.
Is it already signed by the other group?
No.
Well, okay, so I may have to take both of them and
Yeah.
get this other signature.
Terry, I believe, has to sign it,
Yeah.
don't you?
Okay. I'll take whatever I need to take.
Yeah, I'll just need to make copies of them before you take them.
Sure.
We'll set these information up here for you. Okay, personnel actions. Recorder's office. We have one for Jennifer Patterson. It's a 12-month step increase. Previous rate was $48,397. The new rate's $49,021.88.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Then we have conservation. We have three of them here. We'll do them all three at once here. We have Tanner Gearhart, Natural Resource Manager. Promotion. The new rate is $39,025.54. Doesn't say what the previous rate was. Then we have Tanner Gearhart, which is a new hire. This is new hire.
Trenton.
At $15 now. Why do we got two of them for?
One's Tanner, one's, yeah, one's Tanner,
Trenton.
one's Trenton.
Well, it is, isn't it? Sorry about that, people. Trenton Gearhart. New hire, rate $15 an hour. And the next one is Derek Hester, promotion, previous rate $15 an hour to $17 an hour.
Move to approve all three.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Moving on, reports, we have the, report for the fees collected, on the recorders, the Veterans Fair for monthly reports for April 2022, and General Assistance monthly report for April of 2022. These reports will be on file in the auditor's office for your viewing at your discretion. Now we have the minutes for the regular meeting, May the 3rd, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah. We have any other business?
I have none.
I have none. Committee reports.
Future agenda items,
What's that?
future agenda items. We need to have
Yeah,
a
we do have
special
a
meeting
future.
for,
Oh,
That's
Jim,
what, yeah,
that's my fault. I should have brought that up during correspondence. I was contacted yesterday by, I believe it's Brad Stevens, 34 Raceways.
yeah.
And they haven't been able to have a race because of weather, so they're having a race Saturday night. And J&M Displays offered to, put on a fireworks display to help them out a little bit. Of course, Monday was too late to get on the agenda. So I sort of promised him that we'd figure out a way to hold a special meeting. So maybe Thursday, if that would work for either one of both of you, I'll attend by WebEx, and if at least one of you can be there, we could approve that fireworks and help out a local business.
How about Thursday at 9:30 instead of 9?
That'll work for me.
Okay, how about you, Shane?
I'm good with that.
That works for Shane, so,
Perfect.
perfect.
Brad, the guy really appreciates it. This was, he's struggled with COVID and everything, so this would be nice.
Yeah,
we'll get an agenda sent out either this afternoon or early tomorrow morning, so.
okay. That's fine. Wish him luck because the weather has not been with him, I'll tell you.
Oh,
It brings a lot of, believe it or not, that racetrack brings a lot of business in town. Okay.
Now you can go to your committee.
Can I go
report.
to, I was just getting ready to ask you.
You're allowed now.
Terry says I can go to committee report.
to start with Shane, I left my phone in the other room. I'll be back in just a minute.
Yeah, I brought my wrong notebook and I had two reports. I can't remember what the meetings were, Jimmy. I
Yeah.
apologize.
Okay. Tom and I, we both attended a, meeting with the Conservation Board. Talked over some stuff out there, and, so we had a better understanding of each board, so that's about all I had last week.
Was it 9:30 or was that 9, Jimmy, on Thursday?
Tom, I just told him you and I had a conservation board meeting with their board, kind of get an understanding of where each board's coming from, so that's all I had.
Okay, and besides that, Des Moines County Emergency Management, or basically the DESCOM board, had a meeting Thursday evening to approve the, union agreement between the, DESCOM employees and the DESCOM board.
Okay.
So that contract is settled. That's all I had.
Okay, now we have public input. I'll give you 2 minutes to call. That's 319-753-8203, extension 4. That's 319-753-8203, extension 4. Or email board@dmcounty.com. That's board@dmcounty.com, and we'll give you 2 minutes. Anybody here got anything to say?
Hey, I do want to give I don't want to forget, I want to give a big shout out to DESCOM. I'm gonna be dropping off some donuts and pizza, and to the ambulance crew, the fire department. Be dropping off this week some donuts and pizza. They had to save my daughter's life again, and just grateful. It's been a long week, but man, they showed up, and I was a little bit panicked. I hope that tape never comes out. When I made that phone call, it was a little ugly, but just grateful. We've got good services here in Des Moines County. I'm really grateful for them today. That's it.
Trent,
Yes.
you snuck in on us. How's the attorney's office?
I came down for the work session. Right now, I've been upstairs. We're hearing the hearings on, tax reviews. So, I don't know, I wasn't ready to brief. I mean, everything's busy over there like normal,
Good.
but nothing significant to report, so.
That's good. Kevin, go out and get him some more business in.
Working on it. He's always working on it.
Colin, you got a little soft on vacation, and you know, this summer, I think you really ought to go up and chop some wood.
Yeah. I got enough sun here the last week to last me the rest of the year, I think, already, so.
Sarah's not gonna let you forget that, you know that. Okay, the time is up. So, with a aye, we're out of here. Aye. Okay, give us about 5 minutes, we've got some papers to sign here, and then we'll start at the work session with the general assessment. Okay, are we on?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, we're here with a work session to discuss general assistance changes. So we'll turn this over to Brooke. In?
I have no idea what
This
needs to be
This is
discussed.
basically to discuss, because the ordinance and that we have for general assistance is a 1981 and a 1991 version. And all of the stuff that we had gotten from Poish, yeah.
Yes.
County and another county, they had updated, resolutions and ordinances and stuff, and I think after 31 years, I think it's, or 30 years, it's time to update our ordinance. Winnebago.
Winnebago, yes. I wanted to say Bokashek.
I always forget that name.
So, and I had sent a copy to the county attorney's office, the resolution, the 28 agreement with community action, and then the resolution which establishes some other services. So I had forwarded all of that information to the county attorney's office to see what they thought of that. So, did you have a chance to look those over?
I do not, and I have, I mean, to the extent that I have, my computer's upstairs. So I don't have a brief back on that at this point in time.
Is there a copy of our proposed ordinance in there? Did I not
No.
run those off?
No, what's the changes we're making in general assistance?
I thought the only changes were just updating the language.
Updating the ordinance and and creating a 28 agreement with community
With community
action. And then there
Yeah.
was also a resolution establishing the general assistance program provisions. And it's just basically adopting, you adopt the new ordinance and then you establish the program itself. And
What's
and
the
our
difference between the new program and the old program?
That's a little hard to say because the one back in 1981 described a lot of, the 1981 version, like the definitions have changed. It talked about rent and utilities and the allowance per person, and that was back in 1981. And eligibility of the needy and all kinds of stuff, and the new one,
I haven't seen anything like that.
I haven't seen any
It's-
of it either, that's why.
I'll say we've got, but I thought you sent out an email with that, but I don't want anybody to get confused. I know that for a fact what it was, as far as the ordinance and everything, it was just cleaning up hours. We had seen an updated one, and so that was my understanding. Am I correct on that? That you were just cleaning up our old ordinance to match up with theirs, or was that just strictly the 28E that you were?
It needed to be modernized a little bit, because the old one, some of its references was 40 years ago references.
Basically, you're saying the language is a bit
Right.
harsh for
Yeah.
modernized.
Yeah,
And the 28E
Yeah.
agreement, we pretty much went right off of theirs with kind of how they're doing it too, right?
Right.
and then also the new ones referenced a lot of programs in it, but that I had concerns about, and I think I had those highlighted, because some of those programs I didn't know if we even, whether we even have those. I'll send out, I thought I had sent it out to everybody, but maybe I just sent it out to the county attorney's office.
I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Okay, yep, we'll have to get those sent out and
Got you.
stuff. Because the eligibility of the needy persons, that's addressed in there, the level of the benefits, the maximum benefits, those types of things are all, referenced in the resolution.
You mean there's a resolution out there with those benefits in there before we approved them?
No, this is what other counties have done, the most recent, whenever they had another entity administering the program for them. Because Winneshack, they have their local cog, is what they call them, their regional
Yeah.
planning type facility.
Council of Government.
Yep, that takes care of administering the program. And,
I
well,
thought we
it
were
wasn't,
just
it wasn't a
transferring the
regional planning.
administration to community action. I didn't know we were
Yes,
changing the
yes,
program.
it was a community action. I think they call it the Northeast Iowa Community Action or something.
But that was for community actions parameters, not for putting us in a box. They just needed to have something on paper to say, hey, this is how we proceed in dispatching, or giving out this money and that sort of thing.
That's how we recommend you to apply or administer the program. So.
I didn't realize we were changing our program. I thought we were just changing who administered.
We're just we need to update the ordinance while we're at it, because like I said, the one ordinance that we have is 30 and 40 years old.
But,
So, Mark,
but.
You need an update, Tommy.
Is there a refresh
I need
button?
one too. But,
You mean that?
But I think for the short run, or at least immediately, we wanna get the 28E done, because we
Correct.
wanna get that done before the budget year starts.
June is gonna be here real quick, and we need to tie this up so I can, get them satisfied, before June hits.
So, there
I'm not
was,
willing to change that program until I read what changes are being made.
sure. So for the
Are we gonna discuss it?
28E, what questions did you have for what's going into the 28E?
I haven't
They
seen
don't-
it,
they
I
don't
haven't
really
seen
have
it,
any
so.
We haven't seen it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We were just asked to come here today. We had no idea what was even being discussed, so.
Right,
We're along
I haven't
for the
seen
ride.
anything. So I'm
I
happy
think we
to,
were coming to discuss just changing the administration to general assistance. I had no idea that there were changes to the program. We've decided it's too old.
It's not really a whole lot of changes to the program, it's just,
It's just wording in the
Yeah, I thought it was old,
ordinance.
it was
Yeah,
old.
it's always wording. I'm not, I need to see that.
I
don't know what we're
will
changing.
get everything,
We're changing.
I will get everything sent out to you.
Is there any way that you could do that, and then we could, finish this off after Tom has a chance to read it on Thursday? After the 9:30?
I think you probably want a little more time than that.
All right.
We could probably put it on next week's or something and review it again, so.
There must be a few changes if I can't absorb it in 2 days.
Actually, you're not gonna find much change, just, trust, I'm telling you, you won't, but let's handle it the right way.
So, okay, we'll get it on the agenda again for next week. Sarah, is there anything else that you can think of? I know whenever we,
Just, I went out there yesterday and got the files boxed up. I'm starting to scan all those in. I don't know if you've talked to Community Action about their releases if they have somebody that they need a file for. They had talked at the beginning about sending out a release form to everybody in their system, but you wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
So basically, Cheryl and I are gonna work on scanning them all in down here, so that way if somebody needs a file, they can just call down here, have them sign a release while they're there, and then we can send them what they need.
So the auditor's office is scanning all those files.
Yes.
How long is it gonna take you to do that?
I don't know. There's about 5 boxes.
Is this, are you
There were
talking about?
complaints at the last about how much work it was gonna be, so glad somebody's taking care of it.
Are you talking about transferring the records? Because that was one of the things that I had down was, one of the concerns, and I don't know if it's a legitimate or a major concern, but as a concern, was that people only get to use certain benefits so many times in a lifetime.
Correct.
And so these files, that's what you're talking about, you're getting those transferred now?
I'm just scanning them in so that we have them in our system, and then we can get rid of the files after we have them scanned in.
we're making
So-
digital copies
We're making
of it.
digital copies, so then we
Yes.
can port it
So then
from
you can shred them.
one to
Sure,
the
too.
next
Right.
easily.
And then if they need one from someone, they can just ask us for it and we can send it to them, because there's so many files that if we send a letter out to each one of them, we would spend an insane amount of money in postage, and I guarantee you 3/4 of them would be returned.
Okay, yeah, I'm
And-
sure,
and
I'm
then
sure
that'll
more,
wait.
probably more.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, that's kind of,
But is, Brooke, are you going over and are you gonna co-locate as well?
No, I'll be staying where I'm at.
You'll be staying where you're at? Okay. So
What
we're
do
not
you
gonna
mean?
have anybody
I mean,
co-located at community action?
You're still in general assistance until June 30th.
Yeah, correct. But I think he's asking if my office is moving to community action.
no.
No.
So we're not gonna have anybody co-located with them, it's just gonna be their folks and they're gonna
Correct.
be,
We're just gonna turn it over to them.
And,
Yep.
and
we're
we're,
just handing them the keys and we're stepping back. That's-
we're
Right.
that's
scanning, we're
easy.
scanning all the files in, then that way if somebody comes to community action and they can check with us to see if they have a file, and then if they do have a file, then community action get that release from them,
Right,
and then
then we
can
don't
give
have to
them-
worry about sending it out in the mail and
Yeah.
it getting returned, and it's just if they're in the office, they can sign the release right there, I can send it over and
Perfect,
be
okay.
done that way.
Because Emily said that we could scan all of those
Yep.
in and shred the
She
original
said we can keep
files.
everything electronically, there's nothing that says we have to keep anything paper.
that was
So that's when
part
we
of
had kinda, I
change.
kinda
We don't
mentioned
need
to you
change
this
that.
morning, because that's what I'm starting to do with all of our stuff,
Sweet.
not just with this stuff, so that's why Terry and I kinda discussed maybe a separate drive, so our Z drive didn't get completely,
Or does that make any difference,
or if it, or does it matter?
It doesn't, but I could figure out a kind of a cleaner, easier way to do it.
Cause like I'm scanning all my payroll stuff that we archive and stuff in that Z drive as well, and
Are you
so,
gonna scan this into any application, or are you just doing scanning? the
Scans,
files?
just scans.
Do you wanna do it into like TCM so that you can index it and search the files? and
No,
stuff?
because we
no,
don't want
because we've
anybody else
lost
to
so
be able to see
much.
it.
Well, I mean,
too.
I can set it so only certain offices can access it.
Well, I don't even want everybody in our office to access it. I'm sorry to be picky, but.
I mean, I could still
Cause in the Z.
probably lock it down if you wanna do
Okay.
that, but I don't know, it's, I'll leave it up to you guys, however you wanna do it, so.
Okay, cause in the Z drive, there's only 3 of us that have
Yeah.
access to that, so.
I just didn't wanna clog it up too much, or I didn't know how you wanted us to handle that, I guess. So I mean, if the Z drive's okay with us putting it all there, I'm fine with that, but I didn't want you to be like, hey, you got a lot of storage that you're using.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
But we can talk about it more after the
Okay.
meeting, so.
Cause each file would be scanned in according to the individual's name.
Yep.
We're using Comis, which is the old system. And so we have those dates in Comis, but we also have them on paper files, so. But we won't have Comis after June 30th, I mean, our office won't.
Right.
That's the last program that's using that. Everything else is switched over to CSN, a web-based service, so.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do this a couple more weeks. Give you time to get everything out, so we're not gaining any progress today, so.
We should be able to have final products for review. I mean, so we could do another work session with final products to mark up. Yeah, that'd be good. Especially the biggest question I have is answered by this usage times. If you're doing that, you'll be able to check that easily. That was a concern, because we thought we were gonna need to waive that, we thought we were gonna need to waive that 3-time usage per lifetime, just because we wouldn't be able to check, but now we will, so.
Yeah, they'll be alphabetically scanned in by their last name, so I mean, if
Yeah.
they have a question on somebody, I can just pull it up and all the paperwork's right there,
And
so.
once it's digital, you just control F.
Yep.
Type
Can
away.
we get a red line version of the changes made, so that the changes are in red?
Sure.
You have all the ordinance. I could send you a copy of the old one and a copy of the new ordinance.
It'd be easy if the changes were in red.
The whole formatting is different, so.
I agree with you, Tom.
I know,
Well,
it would be, but.
Let's just,
I'm really uncomfortable with this, but we updated the program, and I don't have any idea yet what we're talking about, except a few words here and there.
let's just get the 2080 done. And once that's done, then we can go back to, because they're not, it's not tied, we don't have to change the general assistance ordinance from 28E to function, it'll still work, right?
Should.
Yeah.
Have to look at the comparison, so.
Yeah, so let's get the 28E done and get that, once that's in the bag, then we can worry about changing the ordinance and updating that.
All the 2080 has to do is reference the ordinance, right?
Correct, yes. So let's get the 28E done, that way we know we have that done, everything's in place. So come the beginning of the budget year, it's a smooth transition. And then we can
If
come
we're
back.
changing the ordinance, we're gonna have to have public hearings.
Yeah. 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 Okay, so now we're on to the next one?
2080.
We'll work on the 2080.
Rezoning request, are we open
Good.
there?
I-
Oh,
Yeah, I'm just, the hospital's upstairs weaving their little web of silver and gold to the, I just I don't feel comfortable out of the room with them. But anyways, no, that's fine. If, anything else?
yeah, if you wanna review the ordinance and then send Terry whatever you,
We'll just-
That way
we'll
she
work-
can
we'll
get it
work
to
on the
Tom and-
2080.
So is there
Yeah.
something that Ken and I need to be doing before this next work session?
I don't think so. I thought that you were, for some reason, I don't know why I got that wire crossed. I thought you were switching offices and going to community action
No.
and working out of that entity. So, you're not gonna be managing that, you're gonna be doing VA stuff? and
Yeah,
mental health
starting
stuff?
July 1, I'll be strictly VA is my understanding. So I'll
Okay,
do
perfect.
general assistance still through this budget year, so June 30th.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll still be handling all of that, and then, like Sarah and I talked, if I needed a paper file, currently, most of the boxes are still out at our office, so
Mm-hmm.
between her and I, if I need a paper file, but I have the computer file of it, so I don't see a problem with me being able to continue out this budget year, you know, serving those clients, so. I just didn't know if there was something Ken and I need to be working on before the next work session as well, I didn't know.
you did question fixed assets yesterday, so maybe we
Yeah.
should ask about that.
So there's a binder with fixed assets that, is out at our office, and I didn't know if that will go to Rodney when this all transitions, or who takes over those fixed assets, I didn't know.
What are those fixed assets?
It's for our department, so I would guess that would stay in our department probably.
Well, that's kinda what I was assuming, because it's for that building and that department, so I was assuming it would stay out there.
Yeah, I think we,
'Cause you guys will
between me and Patty, we'll just have to do them in the future. It was Elena and then it was Brooke, who
Okay.
did the fixed assets, but
And that's mainly just the
I always
desks and the
review 'em
computers
with-
and all that stuff.
Well, I don't even think
Yeah.
desks and computers are in fixed assets anymore, cause they were
They used to be.
under, yeah, now I think they're under that
They're
value.
still in there until they're, removed.
Okay,
and
I
disposed
think
of.
automobiles are also in that. I just didn't know, cause that binder was in the GA filing cabinet, so she and I were discussing that
yeah,
yesterday.
we will need that.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
have-
still
Our
there.
department will have to have that still.
It's still there.
Okay.
And then, so yeah, my position changes, and I was over general assistance, 20% of the time, now I'm gonna be 100% paid through MHDS, but I'll also be supervising the two advocates who are still county employees under the code. So I don't know, I still consider myself Director of Community Services over the advocates and over the MHDS, but not over general assistance anymore, so. just till I'm told otherwise. But then I'll be supervised by the CEO of the region rather than having a contract with the county. So it is, the terms of my employment have changed somewhat, but we'll figure it all out.
Yeah.
We're doing the best we can.
But that's not with community action though, right?
No, nothing to do with community action.
Okay.
Yep. It's just that I'm now paid through the state. It's pass-through dollars, but I'm still a county employee paid through the state,
So
so.
it's regionalized, so it's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and have to answer to the region, and the region changed my job description and things like that starting July 1, added more duties, so. But this will all work out.
Yep.
Okay, I'm tracking.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
You have anything else, Tom?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
I got a staff report here. Do you have copies of this? That I sent out by email?
I believe they do.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. This staff report for the rezoning?
No, I need a copy.
Okay.
Oh, we're,
Jim's got one.
Okay, yep, I see it.
Sarah, have you separated the work sessions?
Nope, hold on.
so we gotta separate the work sessions here. Okay, we're through with general assistance workstation.
Hold on.
And one more nice thing, general assistance is not on our sign out front, so it says community services and veterans affairs. So I think we can keep our sign out front the same, so
Perfect.
that's good.
Okay, are we ready?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
We're here with the Board of Supervisors and Jared Lassiter from Southeast Iowa Regional Planning on the rezoning request for 4715-4717 Sullivan Slough Road.
And Zach is also in attendance remotely.
Zach's in attendance, is he? Hi,
Yeah,
Zach.
I'm here.
Okay. Before we start, I do appreciate Jared sending this out, emailing this to it, because I read through this. And it's pretty much your recommendations. I agree with them, so
Okay.
we'll let you go ahead and tell us about it again.
Okay, I'll just zip through the general background here. So this is a Young House Family Services. They're based in Burlington. They're requesting a zoning map amendment involving land that they own on Sullivan Slough Road. It's 4 parcels, but it's all really part of the same complex, commonly called the Woodlands Treatment Center. It's zoned R1, single, 2-family residential, and that is the same as all the surrounding properties. There's a map attachment that shows what it's zoned as now, and it highlights the property involved in the request in red. So they are requesting to have the property rezoned to C1 commercial, which would allow for a residential treatment facility for youth using an existing building that's been vacant since 2014. So Young House, as you know, is a nonprofit that serves families and children in Southeast Iowa, based in Burlington, but they also operate a treatment center in Mount Pleasant, and their services relate to mental health, substance abuse, and behavioral health. And they are contracted through the Iowa Department of Human Services and Juvenile Court. So the Woodlands was originally established based on the property's remote rural setting and the outline of the property there with buildings on a wooded property, set back a good distance from the road. So close to Burlington, but also not a whole lot going on around there. So at the time the zoning ordinance was established in 1998, it had already been in operation for almost 2 decades. And as a result, it became a legal non-conforming use based on the fact that it's in a R1 district, but the fact that it was legally started before there was an ordinance in place to regulate the separation of uses. And it ceased operations in 2014, and the buildings have remained vacant ever since. So the issue now is that it's no longer a legal non-conforming use in accordance with the passage in zoning ordinance that says that if such a use is discontinued for at least 1 year, the future use of the property needs to conform with the regulations of the district. So the south building will be for housing children at the juvenile court and foster care systems. It has space for 20 individual children at any given time, but as I understand from talking with the administrator, the director there, it sounds like most of the time it's going to be significantly less than that. That's just what through their agreement with DHS and through what the capacity of the building allows. So currently there's a need for more space to house children since the capacity is considerably lower at the Mount Pleasant facility. And there's been a restructuring of the DHS policy regarding the juvenile court system, and that's why there's that additional demand. And then they also proposed to resume using the north building for the south building for residential treatment, and then the north building would be an office for their staff. So currently, when the ordinance is recently readopted, now the following is shown as a special permitted use in the R1 district, which social service providers, separate from a church or school. So that would allow the office to resume operations as is in the R1 district. However, it would require a special use permit through the Board of Adjustment. And more importantly, as defined in the ordinance, and you look up the definition of the term social service provider, I highlighted the phrase that does not involve overnight stays. And any type of social service provider that does offer lodging, whether temporary or long-term, would instead fall under the definition of a nursing home or similar care facility. And that definition is provided. And the key thing is that that type of use is not allowed in an R1 district under any circumstances. Rather, it would be allowed in an R2 multifamily district as a special use, again with Board of Adjustment approval. But if it were zoned C1 commercial, then it would be allowed as a permitted use, and it would not have to go through that public hearing process if proposed. So we had a zoning commission meeting last week to review the request of the public hearing, and there were several neighboring property owners in attendance that had received a mailed notice within 500 feet. And there was a pretty lengthy discussion between the commission, the property owners, and the applicant, who was represented at that meeting by their director, Eric Schilling. The neighbors did have a number of stories that they referenced going back to when the facility was previously operational, when children had run away and trespassed on their property. There were some instances of theft and vandalism that were referenced. And so there was a lot of concern about security and supervision for the children on site. And then the Young House representative noted that they're, as an agency contractually obligated by the state, they're required to follow certain protocols, ensuring that there's adequate personnel for attending to the children. However, he did acknowledge, because the facility is not specifically classified as a detention center at the state level, they aren't allowed to completely lock the facility, and there is a general emphasis on, in terms of the rehabilitation of the children, that they want to make sure that it feels like more of a home-like environment, to contrast with the stigma of feeling as if they're in a jail. So he noted that while there are security protocols in place, it is, given the nature of the facility not being a detention center, there's always the possibility that there will be kids will try to run away from time to time. So he noted that while he'd been in this position for about a year now, taking over at Young House, he noted that based on his knowledge of how things were 10 years ago, likely there was a lot of apathy among the staff at the time, due to the way that there'd been a lack of investment from the state level in those types of residential facilities, and so there was kind of a downhill period before the actual closure in 2014. So overall, there was a lot of discussion between the neighbors and the representative of Young House, and while they generally remained uneasy with the prospect of the facility reopening, they seemed appreciative of the opportunity to voice their concerns and be able to address that directly with a representative of the organization before the facility resumed operations. So apart from the specific use in question here, most of the discussion centered around what would be allowed in the future in a C1 district if that Young House facility were to cease operations. Because the C1 district would allow a variety of commercial uses, not just that specific use of a social service provider, which they'd be uncomfortable with in that area. So it was noted that Young House had actually been marketing the buildings for sale last year, as late as last year, and at the time we even met with a representative of a church that was interested in potentially buying the office building. So that just shows you the nature of that relationship with the state on these programs, how things can change quickly, and that one year they're looking to sell the building, and the next they have a need for reopening it. So as a result, there were some general concern about, well, what happens if it closes again in 5 or 10 years and then they decide to sell the building? What would that enable there that wouldn't have been enabled before it was zoned C1? So ultimately, following that discussion, there was the commission voted unanimously among those in attendance to approve the rezoning to C1, but with a condition added that specifies that the use to be allowed would be specified to a residential treatment facility with behavioral and mental health services for children and families, and that any other use allowed in the C1 district normally would require further action by the board to remove or modify that initial condition. So it would just mean that it wouldn't mean that it would be impossible to do it for commercial in the future. It would just mean that it wouldn't be as simple as going to us, and as long as it met like setbacks and other basic regulations that they could do it. It would mean that it would have to have another public hearing opportunity. So it should be noted that this county has not previously utilized what's commonly called a conditional rezoning option, although it's allowed by state code. There's guidance on that, and it is outlined in our zoning ordinance and had been previously as an option. So we would, just to make sure we're following consistent precedent there with how to handle a rezoning in that way. We consulted with the attorney's office as well as with a couple of other county administrators in southeast Iowa to get some guidance on preparing a resolution for the board. So ultimately, there are multiple options here, because what was presented through the zoning commission meeting, that's their recommendation, and the board is certainly welcome to take their guidance into consideration, but under no obligation to follow it, what they said, at least exactly. So there's several options besides that specific condition that they recommended. One is to just completely deny it. Another is to just approve a C1 without any conditions, special conditions at all. There's the other one we had discussed earlier, which was to change it to an R2 district instead, which that same use would be allowed, but only through a special use permit through the Board of Adjustment. That any other commercial use, your typical retail service businesses would not be allowed in that district. And then the last one would be to approve a rezoning to C1 with conditions, but slightly modified from what the zoning commission had recommended. And this is based on that follow-up with a couple of other county administrators and get a little more background research into the topic of conditional rezonings, which if you look at we've attached the resolution on there. And so instead of specifically narrowing it down to residential treatment facility with behavioral mental health services for children, it instead says that apart from uses that are permitted principal uses in R1 and R2, which would be allowed in any case in a C1, a commercial district, the only permitted principal uses in a C1 that would be allowed for this particular C1 district would be those that fit the following two definitions that are listed in the ordinance. And those are the terms that were previously noted in the staff report. The social service provider, which would apply specifically to the office building if it were ever to be sold separately from the residential building. And then the nursing home or similar care facility, which expands out from the social service provider definition to also include overnight stays. And so basically what that would do is that it would take those two specific categories, so basically what the use is they're proposing and anything very similar to that, and those would be allowed through a standard permit through the C1 district. But any other commercial use permitted in C1 that is not fit either of those two definitions would have to go through the board through a public hearing in the future to modify what was additionally approved. And lastly, I will note that if the board does opt for either of those conditional options, the specific one recommended by the commission or the more broad, looking at those two terms option that we had mentioned, the standard process for that is to have at the public hearing with the board meeting, when this is up on the agenda, the applicant would be present for that meeting, and the resolution would include a space for them to sign on it, agreeing to the conditions applied to that property going forward, and that would be recorded along with it as an official amendment to the ordinance, as would always be the case when we're talking about a rezoning of property. So that's the background. At this point, I don't know if Zach has anything to add, or if you have any questions related.
I guess before, and I'm gonna head upstairs, but before anything, part of this, and he's talking about the ebb and flow of this, is Christamore they closed down.
Christamore did?
Yeah. About a month ago, and started making calls to parents and social service providers saying, hey, come get them, we're closing the doors. And so that's a lot of this influx of demand right now, and I think it's gonna be there going forward. The other thing is that if we were to try to say no, we never gave them notice that they discontinued their non-conforming use that had been grandfathered in. So I think we would run into trouble if we tried to say no legally, if they would fight. So
That's based on as far as we know, since that was before, that was when Jeff Hannon was still the administrator. So I don't know for sure if that was the case.
Christamore is different. It's not part of Young House.
No, it is.
But they do the
is,
same
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, they swim in the same pool.
Yeah.
One might be on this end, one might be, like
Yeah.
Woodland's more on the shallow end, where Christamore was more on the deep end.
Yeah.
But if you pee in the pool, there's still pee in the pool, right?
Thanks, Trent.
Great way to put
I
it.
was gonna go swimming this
Thank you, Rodney.
Look at John Smith.
I got a question about the pool. So, who was it that just sent out a notice and said, come pick up the kids, we're done?
That's Christamore over in Mount
Mount
Pleasant.
Pleasant.
No,
What's the name of that facility?
Christamore.
Okay, so that's where the demands come from.
I don't think it's completely
Okay.
shut down. I think that was a temporary thing, as far as I know.
This is a request to rezone, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that require an amendment to the ordinance?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. I don't think it can be done by a resolution. I think it has to be a.
Well, the resolution would reference it as an amendment, yes, and it would be recorded.
Yeah.
Does it have to be published and go through public hearings?
I would think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's an ordinance, okay. The other one of those, get my right page up here.
So if it's gonna be recorded, then the top of it needs to be changed, because in order for it to be recorded, the recorder has their stipulations on recording, so,
Sure, the 2 inches.
yeah, 2 inches.
So
Oh, yeah,
either
sure.
way, even if we were, right now they're asking the board, the zoning board asked that it be, they're recommended that we rezone it C1 with that condition. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think, Tom, I think that's because that the landowners around it was at the same meeting and they agreed to it too. Am I right on that?
Right. They were generally uncomfortable with that specific use reopening, but I think they felt more at ease if that would be the case, so long as other commercial uses, a broad range. But conceivably in the future, if somebody came along with a very specific proposal of what they wanted to do with it, and there was another public hearing at that point, then that wouldn't necessarily be, they might be comfortable with it. I think they're just concerned with the overall broad nature of it, like it could be a auto repair or something that.
I understand that. So my question is, so the reason they prefer this, we make it a C1, then it would take a zoning ordinance amendment to remove or modify that condition, is what I read.
Right.
If it was an R2, then if it was rezoned in R2, then it could have a different use without, it would just, the zoning board of adjustment could issue a special use permit, right?
Yes, yes.
So this would be, if it's the C1, that makes it harder to change the use, right? In the future?
If it's with conditions added,
The
yes.
conditional C1 that the
That's
zoning
what I mean.
board,
So with this condition, it makes it more difficult to change if they leave. If Young House leaves, it would make it more difficult to change that zoning than it would be for the, it would require an ordinance change rather than just a special use permit.
Right. Well, now with R2, that if we did that option, that wouldn't, that would require a rezoning if you wanted any type of commercial use, because there's only a few specific types that would be allowed through a special use permit, which includes those that apply to this project, the nursing home or the social service
but if they
provider.
wanted to sell it.
So either way gives the same outcome in terms of being able to, you would
My
require
question
further
is,
action.
why did they prefer the C1 with the, with the condition in it rather than an R2?
With the R2, if they wanted, 5 years from now, they can convert it into higher density housing. So
I guess
if they wanted
that-
it to be
yeah.
apartments 5 years from now, if it's R2, they're selling it as apartments, and now you have in your neighborhood these smaller apartments. C1, the recommendation of the zoning board is really the tightest language we have, and I think that's.
No, the R2, because multifamily would be allowed in a C1 as well. It's not specific to R2, it's anything R2 and above. So that would be allowed in a C1 as well.
But not if it's the C1 with the specific language as the zoning board put forward, because it has to be then within that description.
Well, the specific one, yes, but this revised one, it says, apart from any uses that are also listed as permitted ones in R1
Right,
and
and
R2.
that's why we're saying, let's not go with the revised, let's go with the specific one that the zoning board recommended, that's providing the most, it's protecting us, because we don't have this problem of not giving notice of stoppage of non-conforming use. It's allowing Woodlands to do what they need to do. It's putting the area at least risk of other future non-conforming uses. That's why I think that is the beauty of what the board came up with.
No, but because the R2 thing would apply even with the specific one, because anytime there's, you have a district that's higher up than R2, anything that's below that automatically is an allowable use in that district. This thing that the commission was recommending is specifically referring to anything above multifamily that would be commercial, that would be allowed in commercial but not in R2. So really what we're getting at is their specific recommendation is narrowed to a very specific thing about about a residential treatment facility for children, whereas the modified one is slightly broadened out to the terms that use fits into being a social service provider or a nursing home or similar care facility. Basically, any one of these options, R2 or the 2C1 conditional, would allow multifamily regardless.
So in order to protect the neighboring properties, what we really need to do then is have it remain R1 with a special use provision.
Well, it's not allowed it's not, the ordinance does not allow, that would require an amendment of the ordinance to allow this type of use as a special permitted use in the R1. So that would be an actual amendment of the ordinance language itself, which, that's an option. If we think that this case has shown that in the future that should be allowed as a special use, but that adds a little wrinkle to this that had not previously been considered.
And that doesn't immediately appeal to me, but I'm still trying to get my head around why the zoning board recommended and agreed with the residents out there, why the C1 with the condition in it is better than an R2, maybe with the condition in it.
I'm thinking there was some concern that if there was another public hearing with a different board, if all those same residents showed up and were concerned about this specific use, that potentially that board would be uncomfortable allowing it if there was a lot of opposition, which, I mean, that's just a hypothetical. I mean, if they follow how the ordinance structures the approval of a special use, then that it shouldn't be up to whether that the neighbors just don't like it. It should be up to some specific criteria about roadway access. It's just something in the ordinance specific to the appropriateness of a special use, which the whole point is that they are only allowed in a district under certain circumstances. So ultimately, I think they were just concerned that this was going to end up in a position where, because the Board of Adjustment makes the final decision, it doesn't come to the Board of Supervisors. I think the commission was just nervous at the prospect of another public hearing with negative pushback ending up in this thing being denied completely because the Board of Adjustment wasn't comfortable with it, which that was their thought on that matter. Again, they are correct in that ultimately the board, it makes the final decision there, and if they were uncomfortable with it, there would still be an appeal process afterwards if the applicant was denied and they didn't think that was fair, but ultimately that would just prolong the overall process. So I think ultimately what the commission was prioritizing was the expediency of the C1 conditional rezoning, and that would allow this, because Young House is looking to proceed this summer to having that facility upgraded, because it's going to involve a number of retrofits and upgrades since it's been not operational for 8 years.
I still don't understand.
And the public, go ahead, Shane, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, but I was where Tom was, I still don't understand, and maybe you do now. I still don't
Well, I'm
understand.
completely confused.
Okay, yeah, I don't understand why they're trying to move it from.
Did the individuals, the residents that attended that public hearing, is this the solution that they thought was their best option?
I think so.
That's what I was asking, why did they think that?
Well,
They thought that what was the
well,
best option?
I think that was the one that because we tried to bring up the R2 at the staff level. We tried to mention that R2 option, but I think that there was definitely a degree of support initially from the commission on that as well. So I'm not sure. There was no specific discussion of multifamily on that lot. We were strictly referencing it in terms of the name of the district that would be the alternative. So I can't vouch for whether the members would be uncomfortable with that or not. I mean, because ultimately all of the different options, whether rezoning to R2 or rezoning to C1 with or without conditions, would allow multifamily on that property. So in my opinion, I would think that the R2 that option would be just as feasible as the C1 conditional, and would actually be pretty effective in terms of the fact that it would not allow any other commercial uses down the line without having to do a special condition that attests to that. So in my opinion, I would be very supportive of that R2 option. I'm just not sure that the commission. I think a lot of their concern stems back from what happens if it goes to a Board of Adjustment meeting for R2 and they just don't feel comfortable approving it at all. based on what the residents being concerned about security of the Young House facility.
Yeah,
Like, one thing I can say, Young House, we need to get something zoned for them, because I know this is a good thing. This Young House takes these troubled kids down there, and they help them out before they end up down in our penal
Right.
system. And we need to work with them somehow, whether it's a
Right.
R2 or a C1 or that.
I agree with you on that.
I think a lot of the issue just stems from the NIMBY factor, that everybody, and there was commentary at the meeting, that regardless of where you put this thing, that even if there's only a handful of households around there, those people, especially if they have prior negative experiences, they're not gonna like that idea. And so the issue becomes, if you have the Board of Adjustment where they make the final say in the matter, if you've got a board like that does not frequently deal with contentious issues like that, where they're coming and telling stories about how things used to be, I think that the commission, there's just some concern there that if they might be uncomfortable with something based on having their peers in the community come out and say they don't like this, that could, I'm not saying that's gonna be the case, I think that's just their concern that might be an option.
When you first brought it out, you said that they had a meeting that everybody pretty much came down to understand they were cool with it. Were they cool with it, or were they really upset about it? I mean, what's the deal with the residents? Because I'm not really getting a full understanding here, because it's like, you're saying that everybody was cool, that they said, well, we weren't comfortable, but yet.
I think.
Go ahead. Right, that everything was cool, but yet the concern with the board was that if it goes back, it's gonna get contentious. So I'm just kinda lost on that.
Well,
I got a feeling that the reason they're recommending the C1 with the options is because of the residents that live around there. This satisfies them with a lot of, not as much repercussion coming from it.
I think ultimately, regardless of how it's presented, I don't want to make it sound like that they were supportive or completely okay with the Young House reopening. I think ultimately there's always going to be concern on their part about having to have that nearby. What I was saying specifically is that they felt comfortable with the compromise of ultimately they don't like the idea of it being there, but if they feel like that at least they're getting a situation where it's brought back from what the potential could be, where yes, they're still gonna have Young House operating there, but they are protected from having that same property suddenly change to auto repair or some other commercial use in the future. They at least feel comfortable then that it's a compromise that seems fair to everyone. That's the impression I think we got from the board there. And it's all hypothetical, because if there is another hearing, if they rezone to R2 and it becomes special use, then that's it. Conceivably, if those neighbors get the notice and they understand, going back to that discussion, the ramifications there, that it's the same thing being considered for Young House, but commercial is off the table. I think conceivably that they would be fine with that and possibly not even show up. But that's not
restrictive, yeah.
Right.
I
But
agree with Shane and Jim.
Yeah.
Young House, that this is a good thing, we need it. It seems like the C1 with the condition is what the zoning board came up with at the public hearing, and seemed to, if not completely satisfy, at least mollify the residents to minimize their discomfort. My question, I was just trying to get my head around why they came up with that, and I might never get my head around that, but if
I don't know if there's really a clear answer of why, but I think the general sense was it's just the process of approval.
Can't hardly hear you.
We're just more comfortable with it.
Zach, can you
Zach?
speak up a little bit? I can't hardly hear you.
As opposed to a process that goes through the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, and that sounds
If
so,
that makes sense.
it does, I think I'm kind of getting that, and, I think it's probably, well, I'm sure it's a good thing for, Young House to open that up again and provide that treatment around here. And, it sort of sounds to me like they've at least addressed most of the concerns or the serious concerns that the residents of that area had. While some of those concerns still exist, they've been eased a little bit, is my feeling for those.
Some of the specific discussion, I didn't have it in the staff report, but they had talked about some of the technology changes in terms of the security of what happens if a kid tries to go out the window or sneak out the door at off hours. And so there was some discussion of some of the security protocols that they would have available that wouldn't necessarily have been available 10 years ago. So there some of that was, again, while it doesn't entirely eliminate the possibility that a kid could escape, it still shows that plus the fact that now if there's more of a clear state investment in this program, that the staff on hand is clearly equipped and focused on the security of that facility, that we're not going to have a repeat of the way things were 10, 15 years ago, and all the previous issues that the neighbors had referenced.
I had a real good friend that worked there, your neighbor, he's gone now, John Bennett. And he used to stop and have coffee with us up there, and he'd tell us about this here, woodland out here.
Mm-hmm.
He says, don't know how many people or kids that's kept out of the penal system by going out there and getting rehabilitated. A lot of them was single parents, or the dad raised them, the dad was an alcoholic or something. Then they couldn't deal with it and they got them straightened out. He said that most of them are good kids. So, whatever we do, we need to do it for the kids.
And that's the thing too, to consider, that yes, it is very unfortunate if you live out there and you have something, they steal a bike or something, or they deface your property. That's frustrating. But at the same time, what does that actually mean? Even if it did happen a few times, which probably should have, the security should have been a little bit better. Even then, what is that statistic in terms of how many break out and have issues versus how many are being really helped at that facility? So that's the thing about these types of uses, is you're always going to have negative things associated with it, but at the same time, is how big a deal in terms of the overall operation is that? Because those types of things are unfortunately just a natural side effect of having that operation there that really does help a lot of people.
Well, I agree with Jim. I think it'd be great to get that facility in use again. And I was comfortable if they've reached this C1 with the conditions, and they reach that during a public hearing to ease some of the concerns of the citizens. That's probably be the way that I would go forward.
I like it. I'd rather deal with
I think our goal is to have this discussion so we can kind of, number one, educate everybody and have this discussion ahead of time so we're comfortable when we move forward. And I guess from here we can work on scheduling the public hearings and get things in motion with that as the recommendation. But if you have other questions or comments in the meantime, I think feel free to reach out to Jared or I, and we can walk you through it.
I admire your ambition trying to educate the board of supervisors.
Well, it is an unusual case.
To educate people about. I mean, it's Although we spent many months doing it, so.
You know, I'm not so sure that when I was growing up, if they'd had something like this here, I'm not so damn sure I might have been in one of them.
Well, you
Okay.
still made it, Jim.
What's that?
I said you still made it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know how, but I did. Okay, gentlemen, I think that concludes it. Zach, Tom, thank you.
Yes.
And Tom, if I don't see you, I'll see you Thursday. You take care of them grandkids. Get out there and help Mrs. Broker.
Do something for Mrs. Broker,
Yeah.
Thomas. You lazy lima bean, do something for Mrs. Broker.
I had a 3-year-old with a nightmare.
You don't want to see one leg with
I'm just trying to figure out the
Have a great day.
form.
Hey, enjoy yourself, Thomas. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Then we want to
Do
do
that.
that, right?
Well, it specifically mentions amendment in here.
See, it's got a resolution number and stuff. It's gonna be with the board.
Nobody can do anything with Jimmy.
I know.
People have been trying
You
for
wanna
years.
use it in here.
This guy's untouchable.
Well, I saw the way it was before.
You know what?
When it
Don't
was
start,
previous
Jimmy.
one,
I bet you wouldn't feel
specifically thought it
good.
seemed a lot